So I'm not a huge fan of like speakers' bios and reading those long lists of accomplishments, because I think everybody has amazing things they've done in the world. So I always prefer to introduce myself. And I like to say that my full-time job is being Melanie's husband and Mia and Jackson's dad. That is what my full-time commitment is to this world, is being a husband to an amazing wife who is a physical therapist and pushes me every day to be the best me possible. And I have two very small, very active children, Mia, who's 4 years old, and Jackson, who is 1, who keep me on my toes and is the real reason why I do the work that I do. Because if I do not work to create a path and a space for them to be successful, I have failed them as a father and as a mentor. Now, what I get paid to do, because that job does not provide any money, it actually takes money away, but what I get paid to do is work at Lone Star College-Tomball, which is about 40 minutes. I always south, north of Kingwood. I'm always that with direction, but I serve as the Chief Strategist there, and as opposed to trying to explain what that job is, I basically do two things. Number one is I am responsible for protecting the brand of Lone Star College-Tomball. And connected to that is also protecting the brand of our president, Dr. Leanne Nutt. She does a fantastic job of getting out in the community in Tomball and outside of Tomball and representing us. But my job is really to be the watchdog of the Lone Star College-Tomball brand. In addition to that, I also get a chance to come up with really, really cool things to do with the college. So within my division, it's called the Office of Strategic Initiatives. The largest department there is college relations. So when I say protect the brand, the marketing communication office is an area that I get a chance to lead and work with. And that is from social media to banners to flyers to press releases to crisis management. All of that is what I get a chance to lead. I also am responsible for the culture at Lone Star College-Tomball. So our professional development office ensures that our faculty and staff are prepared to do the best job possible, but they also manage the culture and what are the expectations of our employees and our students at Lone Star College-Tomball. The area that I get a chance to have the most fun in is Multimedia Services. So I see the camera back there in the back. We have 2 spaces that we just built. One is a Multimedia Services studio. The other is a one-button studio for students who record videos. So I get a chance to play around with green screens and do podcasts and all that fun stuff. And then our newest area that we've created is the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, which is a huge priority, not only in higher ed, but in the world, and how do we support students who faculty and staff who are different, and educate folks about differences and similarities. So it's a really fun job, and I love doing it. I also get the chance to step out of the office a little bit and talk to people about topics that I think are really, really important. I love talking about personal branding, because that is something that I cherish and I take very, very serious, and I hope that you all do as well. So I'm not going to stand up here for a really, really long time, but I have some things that I want to talk to you about, some things that I'll have you all think through, and then we'll get out of here in a reasonable time. So the first thing that I'd like to do to get this presentation started is to have you all tell me what's one word that comes to mind when you hear or see the word leadership. So just inspiring. All right, tell me more. Nice, inspiring. One word to describe that describes leadership.
Vulnerability.
Vulnerability. Why?
The leader is vulnerable because everyone is looking to that person for an example,
Yeah.
and if they are flawed as humans are, that could be kind of highlighted because they are supposed to be the leader.
Yeah, vulnerability. Others, one word you'd use to describe leadership.
Accountability.
All right, talk to me about that.
It's making sure that the people that you're leading is doing the things that's necessary to make them who they need to be,
Yeah.
their best self.
And then additionally being responsible, accountable to them, right? That I, as a leader, set the pace and the direction, and what am I accountable to? Others.
Transformation.
All right, let's talk about that. Transformational.
Yes, they help build out the best in people and transform them, the people that they're leading, and the projects that they're leading.
Yeah, helping people become their best selves. Others.
Community
Communication. Talk to me about communication.
Being able to communicate with different people. We talk about diversity, being able to just, being able to communicate.
Yeah, being an effective communicator. Absolutely. One word you say it again?
Motivation.
Yeah, talk to me about motivation.
Motivation, he was going to say it too, so I'll let him describe it.
Motivation as a leader shows his group that he's,
Or her group.
or her group,
Right.
that no matter what, you can always achieve your goals if you never give up.
Yeah.
The leader is there to pick you up whenever you fall and to always have your back.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Others, a couple more. One word you would use to describe leadership. No right or wrong answers. Yeah. Somebody did, yes. That's all right. Tell me why communication is important to you, though.
As a leader, if you can't, like everyone who's under you, if you can't receive and send messages to them effectively, you can't lead effectively.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. One more. One word to describe leadership.
Transparency.
Oh, okay. Transparency. Let's talk about that.
It's important for a leader to be transparent so that everybody's understanding of where the group is, what goals we're looking forward to meeting. I think it's being transparent about where I fall short as a leader, and how my group can utilize their skills to help and support me as a leader.
Yeah, absolutely. So you all know the topic of today's presentation is about branding. So the one word that I choose is brand, right? And I'm hoping that I have my wallet here. So I have been fortunate to be able to talk about personal branding and leadership branding for several years. This presentation actually started when I began teaching EDUC 1300, the first year experience class. And I was building out the curriculum, and I was thinking about what is an important topic that I wish somebody would have talked to me about when I was in college. And it was branding. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking to you all about personal branding. So I love this definition here about your full-time brand. Your brand is making a full-time commitment to the journey of defining yourself and how this will shape the manner in which you serve others. So things that stand out to me as I read that definition is it's a full-time commitment. It's not a half-time, it's not a quarter of a time, but you are making a commitment on how you are learning and growing and being able to define yourself and how it's going to shape how you support, engage, and help other people become better. And when I talk about branding, I always like to say that the journey needs to be mission and vision driven, right? It needs to be mission and vision driven. So what do I mean by that? So when I took this job, so I started at Lone Star College-Tomball as a faculty member. So I taught for 3 years, and then an assistant dean job came available, and I applied for that, and was excited to be able to work closely with our vice president of instruction to support the professional development of faculty, in addition to working with our campus partners around dual credit. I did that job for about 1.5 years, and our president, who was the vice president of instruction at the time, or was the vice president of instruction, became the president, asked me to serve as the interim executive director of college relations. So I was doing my assistant dean job and my executive director of college relations job. And then about 10 months later, she called me in her office and said, so look, we need to figure out what you want to do here at Lone Star College-Tomball. And for those people who know me, I always speak into existence my ultimate career goal, which is to be a chancellor and a college president. So if you talk to anybody at Lone Star College-Tomball, or anybody that's heard me talk, they know that Jackie Thomas wants to be a president. So I told Dr. Nutt I want to be a president. She said, well, I'm going to give you an opportunity to create a job that is going to align with your strengths, and is going to grab all of this random stuff to create a division. And that's how I created the Office of Strategic Initiatives. And she said, with creating this new job, I'm going to put you on the executive cabinet. So I am part of the president's leadership team. And I don't share that story with you all to brag, but to really drive home this point here. So I remember going into our first executive cabinet meeting, right, which is in the executive conference room, and there's a long wooden table. And as I thought about Jackie Thomas's brand and who I am and why I do this work, for those of you who came in a little bit later, I talked about I do this work for my 2 children, Mia and Jackson. As I walked into the conference room and I looked at that brown table, I felt a huge sense of responsibility and fear, because at that big brown table, we make decisions that impact everybody at the college. So no longer were the decisions that I was making kind of departmental. Now I'm sitting in a room with our president and other vice presidents and deciding who's going to get funding, who's going to get hired, what positions are we going to post, where are we going to allocate money to community members, what scholarships do we want to fund, those type of conversations. So one of the things that I keep with me in my wallet is a picture of that conference room table, right? Is a picture of that conference room table. Now the other side are my personal mission statement and my personal vision statement, right? Which guides my work and reminds me why I do what I do. So my personal mission statement. So going back to your brand, right? It has to be mission and vision driven. So my personal mission statement is to use my talents, time, gift, and resources to educate, encourage, and empower those who I come in contact with, either directly or indirectly. Did I say that correctly? Right? So my challenge to you all is, if you have not developed or thought about what your personal mission statement is, as you think about this idea of a brand, oftentimes we associate it with corporations. Corporations have mission statements and vision statements, and they have core values, and they have principles that guide their work and their actions. You all are just like a corporate brand. That is a fact. So I'd encourage you to think through, what is your personal mission statement, right? Use my talents, times, gifts, and resources to educate, encourage, empower those who I come in contact with, either directly or indirectly, right? The next is, what is my vision? Like, what is it that I want people to say that I was able to do when I left this world? And my vision statement is that I've positively impacted the lives of my students, family, friends, and colleagues, and have contributed to a more just, caring, and thriving world, right? So, on this card in my wallet is a picture of that conference room table where I get a chance to make decisions that impact the lives of students, of family members, of faculty members, of administrators, and staff. And I have this mission and this vision that's going to always guide my work, so that I know that I'm operating from a place of authenticity and a place of truth and a place of alignment as I think about Jackie Thomas's brand. All right? So my challenge to you is, if you've not thought about your personal mission or your personal vision statement, to do that, especially as you think about your personal brand and your leadership brand. So this statement here, right, that personal branding is no longer an option, it's a powerful leadership enabler, is a fact. So 10 years ago, I probably would not have said this statement, but because we live in a world where everybody has access to who you are, it's no longer an option. So I share with you all that I have aspirations of becoming a college president. One of my fears that I have in life, which will probably come true at some point, is I'm going to walk into my office one day, grab a copy of the school newspaper, sit down, get ready to drink my cup of coffee, and on the front page of the school newspaper is going to be a screenshot of 21-year-old Jackie in a rap video that I made in college. Right? A rap video that I was not I'm not proud of now. At the time, I thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread, right? But somebody is going to find that. And I have to be responsible and accountable for what I said, what I did, how I acted, right? So as you all think about who you are and your brand, it is no longer an option. You cannot hide anywhere in the world. I will tell you that when I go and try to hire somebody, the first thing I do is Google search their name, click on images, and see what comes up. Right? That is a fact. So it's no longer an option. It is a powerful leadership enabler, because now people have the opportunity to access you, create their own image of who you are, and then either provide or take away opportunities from you. I would argue that the thing that we oftentimes associate with our brand is our name, right? So if somebody was to say, talk to me about Jackie Thomas, Jackie Carl Thomas, there's a list of things that people are going to be able to say. That he talks about his wife all the time. He loves his kids. He loves his job at Lone Star College-Tomball. He is a a huge fan of hip hop and goes to concerts all over the place, right? That he tries to live authentically, right? People have a list of descriptors. He enjoys talking in front of people, loves teaching college students. I want you all for a moment to pretend that we live in a world where now your first, your middle, and your last name no longer exist. But yet and still, those first, middle, and last name are replaced with 3 words that describe who you are, right? So as opposed to me now introducing myself as, hi, how are you doing? My name is Jackie C. Thomas. I'm gonna introduce myself as, hi, how are you doing? My name is Do Great Things. Because I feel like I have a responsibility in this world to do great things. Everybody follow me? I always insert this slide here, which is this idea of not worrying about what other people think about you. Worry about what they think of themselves when they think of you or when they're with you, right? So as you think about personal branding, oftentimes people will say, how many people have heard your mom or dad or aunt or uncle say, don't worry about what other people think about you? Say it all the time, right? So kind of going back to the point that I shared earlier about people having access to information about you all the time, I never want people to worry all the time about what people think about them, but you have to be aware, right? You have to be aware that there are people in positions of power who have the opportunity to either give or take away opportunities from you. That is a fact, right? So you have to be aware of the power and the influence that exists around you, but not allow it to consume you, right? What you do have control over, though, is what people think of themselves when they are with you, right? So what you give off, how you engage others, the vibe that you share, you have complete control over. So when I was doing research on this presentation, I looked at corporations, right? Because when we talk about branding, you immediately think about the Nikes and the Microsofts and the Cokes and the Gillettes and the McDonald's and the Burger Kings and the Wendy's and the IBMs and Whataburger, right? Whataburger has an amazing brand. So what I found is that really awesome brands have 3 key characteristics, and I want to share those with you all today. So the first is great brands provide an expectation of quality, right? Great brands provide an expectation of quality. So while I may have some Samsung users in here, there are a few. I have converted to Team Apple a long time ago, especially because of my interest in graphics, right? And I will argue with anybody that when it comes to graphics and photos and just the ability to do really, really awesome things, Apple products provide that opportunity, right? Now we could go back and forth all day, every day, but for the sake of my presentation, when you think about great brands and they provide an expectation of quality, one of the first things that I loved about Apple products is that they never crash. Very, very rarely do they crash. My PC, geez, that blue screen has killed me, right? But why does that apply to you, right? So great brands provide this expectation of quality because everything that you do at work, at home, at school has to be quality. Everything, everything. The second point is great brands provide a defining experience. So while I will not go into a very, very long story, my wife and I, for our anniversary, went to a sandals resort. Has anybody ever heard of or been to Sandals? Oh, a good number of people, right? So my hope is that you had an amazing experience. I will tell you that my anniversary trip that my wife and I took sold me on sandals forever, right? Great brands provide a defining experience. So from us getting off the plane in Jamaica to getting on the shuttle bus to getting to the resort, everything about that experience was memorable. So when I got on the shuttle driver was the most amazing human being I ever met and told us about everything that we were passing. When I got off the shuttle to the resort, they gave us a towel to wipe our heads off with and a glass of champagne. We sat down and waited to get registered. By the time we got up to our room, our bags were already in our room with food and champagne and a black phone on the bed, which was for our 24-hour butler who was available for whatever we wanted, right? Right? Great brands provide a defining experience. So why do I share that with you? Because you have the opportunity to make every interaction with other people memorable, right? As you think about who you are and how you engage and what you share, you have control over ensuring that every time I engage with you, it is memorable, right? That it is long-lasting. The third point is great brands provide this expectation of superior benefits. And when I talk about this, I always show a pair of Jordans, because when somebody puts on a pair of Jordans, in their mind, they become the most dominant athlete ever, right? For some reason, you can run faster, you can jump higher, your jump shot's just a little bit better. So, as you think about your brand, great brands provide this expectation of superior benefits. That means that every interaction and engagement that I have with you, I have to feel like I'm going to get something from it, and in return, I'm going to give something to you, right? So there is a mutual relationship of value because of our partnership and our relationship, right? That great brands provide this expectation of superior benefits. That because I know you and because I've engaged with you and I've talked with you, I'm going to become a better person, right? So great brands provide a defining experience, an expectation of quality, and an expectation of superior benefits, all right? So every time I do this presentation, I always like to get feedback from the audience. And the last time I did this, I had a student say, can you give us some very, very specific practical things that we can do to kind of get our brand jump started? So I said, absolutely. So the first thing that I would recommend, and Naima mentioned this, is the first thing you can do to jumpstart your brand is to be authentic, right? And the best way that you can do that is to really know who you are. And I will tell you, I was talking to a student after a presentation I did at University Park, and he and I spent about 20 minutes talking about authenticity, and he was really confused. And I said, the best way to describe authenticity is that who you are and who you choose to be are aligned, right? There's alignment in your life, and that you have clarity about who you are. And oftentimes when I ask students who you are, what do they tell me? Their name. And you are so much more than just your name. Now there may be history or relevance or significance in your name, but there are so many pieces that make up Jackie that allow me to operate in a world where I feel comfortable with who I am. So I always say that if I describe myself, I describe myself as a young black man who is a husband, who is a father, who is a lover of music and concerts, who is non-traditional, who is creative, who is innovative, who cares about students, who cares about people, who wants to make a difference in the world, who is a Christian. Like there's so many pieces of who I am that make up me, that influence how I operate every day. So my challenge to you is, if you've not had the opportunity to do that or taken time to reflect on who you are, you should, what your core values are. So most people do not know that I have 18 tattoos. 18, and every single one of them represent a core value. Every single one of them. Romans 12:6-8 is on my chest. God has given people special gifts. If your gift is to teach, be the best teacher possible. If your gift is to serve, be the best servant possible. If your gift is to be a prophet, be the best prophet possible. I have my parents' name, God bless my family, on my back. I have an angel on my tricep, right? Because I feel like I should always have an angel watching my back. I have my fraternity on my arm. I have loyalty going down one bicep, courage going down another bicep. I have a dragon that represents bravery. I have an eagle that represents liberty, right? I don't sit in that tattoo chair because I like the design. Now, am I telling you to go to the tattoo shop and get all your core values tattooed on you? No. But if you don't know what your core values are, it's really hard to be authentic. So what I'll share with Mr. Dorsey is a document that I have all of my students fill out. It's called a self-exploration handout. And it just gives you the opportunity to talk about who you are, who you choose to be, what are your beliefs, what are your values, what legacy do you want to leave? And I'll talk through some of those questions a little later. So that's my first tip, is to be authentic. The second is to show your confidence. So the easiest way to do that is to build your capacity to be able to effectively communicate with other people. And the way you do that is by speaking. So how many of you all absolutely do not like talking in public? How many of you all do enjoy it? How many are like, I'll do it if I have to? So my challenge to you all is to find opportunities to hone that skill, right? Whether it's through organizations like Toastmasters, whether it is through taking a speech course, but the way in which you are able to effectively show your confidence is the way in which you communicate with other people. So that's my challenge to you. If you don't feel comfortable in this space, to work on it. I am, so my wife knows this about me. Every time I have to speak in public, I have really, really, really bad anxiety. Super nervous every time, but once I get to talking, I feel a lot more confident. So showing your confidence, my challenge to you is to work on speaking publicly. The second, develop the tools of the trade. So if you know that you want to be a graphic designer, I need you to get skilled at Photoshop. So my challenge to each of you all is that if you have an idea about what you want to do, I want you to pick one thing that you're going to get great at. So Malcolm Gladwell wrote a book called Outliers. And in that book, he talked about in order to become an expert at something, you have to spend 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. So not like 10,000 hours of watching TV or like 10,000 hours of like intentional practice to get great at something. So my challenge to each of you all is as you walk away from this space, find one thing that you want to focus on getting better at. At Lone Star College-Tomball, we did something called the Hard Thing Challenge. So last year, we challenged every single one of our employees to do one thing that was difficult. So mine was to record a podcast, which I'm working on now at the college. Our president was to learn sign language. Our vice president of administrative services was to learn how to play guitar. We had several people who had weight loss goals. One of our employees' husband died, and her hard thing was to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, right? So my challenge to you is to pick one thing that you want to learn and get better at and to focus on it. The last three, right? So asking for feedback and reassessing your brand regularly. So with feedback, by show of hands, how many of you all have a mentor? Yeah, so my challenge to you now is to find a mentor, whether it's a faculty member, whether it's an advisor, whether it's Mr. Dorsey, whether it's somebody that works here at the college. But I would not be able to be where I am today without having somebody that is able to give me very honest and clear feedback about who I am and the goals that I want to accomplish. So if you don't have a mentor, find one. It's critical. Reassessing your brand regularly and building a professional online image. Those two kind of go together. So my challenge to you all, and I've had to focus on this a lot over the past 5 years, is to look at what you put online, right? Because we're watching. And although you may delete it, it never, ever, ever goes away. And I don't say that to scare you all. I say that as now you have the opportunity, when you walk away today, to really jumpstart this brand of yours and to spend some time combing through your social media accounts and saying, is what I'm representing being my true authentic self, right? Is how I show up at work different than how I show up on the internet? And if those two things aren't the same, you got to fix it because our eyes are on you, all right? So in closing, just some things that I want you to think about. As you move forward and think about your brand, what's going to be your plan? What are some things that make you different than other people? I think that is what makes brands special, is that they are different, they're unique. Who are you capable of becoming, right? So we are all a work in progress, but do you see who you are able to become over time, right? What are your strengths? So Mr. Dorsey, how many of you have taken the Strengths Finder assessment or familiar with that at all? If you've not, make sure to get your information to Mr. Dorsey and I'll give you all a free code to be able to take it, right? So what that tool does is it gives you, you answer a series of questions and it generates your top 5 strengths. What are the 5 things you're really, really good at? So if you can't articulate those, I want you to be able to do that. My top 5 strengths are being strategic, futuristic, maximizing other people, strategic, futuristic, maximizer, ideation, and communication. So I'm really good at coming up with ideas and effectively communicating those. I want you to be able to tell other people what your 5 strengths are. What do you want to be known for? How do your actions make things better? How are you using your talents and gifts to serve other people? And the last one is, what legacy do you want to leave? So I'm going to close with a blog post that I received from an organization I've been a part of for about 10 years called Leadership. And Leadership has really been instrumental in encouraging me to continue to do this work of supporting college students. So it is a 6-day Leadership Institute for college students where we help students to think about living in a world of possibility and to develop leaders who live and lead with integrity. And I've traveled all across the country to facilitate this 6-day institute. So typically when I get back from Leadership, I'm exhausted, and they send you a series of emails. One is an evaluation about your experience, and oftentimes they'll send you something to motivate you to continue to work on day 7. All right, so the institute is 6 days. Day 7 is the rest of your life. And there's a couple who wrote a blog, and they forwarded it to us, and it completely changed the way I look at life. And it's by a couple named Mark and Angel, and their website's called Mark and Angel Hack Life. And the blog post was titled, "The 8 Things You Should Fight For Every Day." And if you walk into my office at Lone Star College-Tomball and sit down at my desk, you'll see 8 pictures on my wall that represent the 8 things you should fight for every day. I want to share those with you all as I close. So, the first thing you should fight for every day as you think about your brand is a willingness to learn from mistakes, because we are going to make them. And I would argue that some of the greatest learning that can happen is when you make a mistake. The second thing you should fight for every day is goodwill, and that's to do good to other people. Because there's a lot of negativity that exists in our world, right? So to wake up every morning fighting to do good for other people. The third is positive change, right? You think about your brand, and when you wake up every morning, you should fight every day to impact positive change. Not just change, but this positive, right? You're making the world a better place. The fourth is true love, right? As you think about your brand, as you think about waking up every morning and what you fight for what you love. If that is a person, if that is a thing, if that is an idea, you fight for that every single day. The fifth is honesty and truth, right? To be honest with yourself and to be truthful with others. The sixth, a mind free of jealousy and envy. Because I will tell you, you're going to get to where you get to when you get there. And I was guilty of looking at what my friends were doing and feeling like, dang, I haven't done enough. Why did I wait so late to get married? Why did I wait so late to have kids? Why did I go to graduate school forever and ever and ever? And everybody's making money and doing all this great stuff. But you're going to get to where you get to when you get there, right, at your own time. So every day you fight for a mind free of jealousy and envy. The next is persistence and patience, right? Persistence and patience. Because things are going to get difficult. It is going to get hard, and I would encourage you to recognize that it's okay to take a step back and to be patient. I like to operate really, really fast, but sometimes I got to take a step back, view the landscape, and take my time and get there. And the last one is personal greatness. Every day you wake up, you should fight to be the best person that you can be. And that, my friends, are going to ensure that the brand that you develop is a strong one. So let me stop here and see if you all have any questions. I think I am 1 minute away from 1:15.
Any questions, guys?
Yeah.
Do you have a logo?
Like a personal logo that I've created?
Yeah, and also do you think it's necessary? Could it be,
That's a good question. So I have played around with a logo. So a while ago, so my initials are JCT, Jackie Carl Thomas. I was born in 1981. And I remember driving down the freeway and seeing JCT on freeways, and it stands for junction. So I did create a logo a while ago. I still have it. It's JCT with the number 81 with the stop sign. And I created it because I feel like Jackie Thomas is like the intersection of like innovation and creativity, right? Where those two things meet. So I do have one. I just, just kind of sitting aside. Do I think it's important to have one? It depends. One of the things that I will develop for my family is like a family crest or a family seal, just because it's something that I've never had in my family. And I think being able to craft something that represents the values of the Thomas family is really, really important. So that'll be something I'll work with my wife on. So, yeah, good question. Other questions? Comments, thoughts? Yeah.
What are, I'm not a college student, by the way, you would think of me as one, that's fine. But, what are some important things that as a college student you think are overlooked when we are thinking about building who we are becoming as humans for the rest of our lives?
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good question. I think that college students oftentimes overlook the story, right? So I think you may have mentioned something about what it took to get you here. I think when you exist in a space, particularly at a community college where people share very, very similar experiences, whether it is I'm the first person in my family to go to college, or I had people tell me that college wasn't for me, or I started working and then I realized I didn't like my job and I decided to go back to school, or I had a family and I put my kids through school first and then I decided to come back. I think in this environment in particular, we don't really embrace the beauty of the story, because so many other people have a challenge or experience that may be similar to ours that we may not think about how important that story was to getting us to where we got to, right? So I always, in all the classes that I teach, I always tell the story about me failing out of college. And that is not uncommon, right? I don't share that because, Jackie Thomas is the exception to the rule. That happens a lot. But if I didn't fail out of college, I think my life would have been very, very different, right? It would have been, I don't know what it would have looked like, but that moment where I got the letter that said you put on academic suspension, I had to get it together because I realized I was doing this for my mom, for my dad, for my grandparents who were so proud of me going to college. And all of that is part of the story, right? It is a part of how Jackie Thomas got interested in working in higher education, and how I took my job working at U of H at the front desk as a student worker, and then talking to Zach Copeland and him convincing me that higher ed is a career that I should take, and then waiting until the last minute to apply to graduate school and getting accepted at the last minute, and miraculously finding an assistantship to pay for school, and moving to Tallahassee and being severely depressed because my girlfriend and I broke up, and graduating on April 28th and driving back to Houston, Texas without a job because I was fighting for true love, right? She's now my wife, so I came out on top, right? But I think oftentimes we overlook the story, right? Because we're so focused on, getting to school, getting the work done, trying to graduate, going into our careers, that we forget about all those little things that help make us who we are. So I would definitely say to appreciate the story. I definitely think the importance of monitoring the things that you post online is something I think students overlook, because in another presentation that I do, I share stats. So it's like 70% of employers have fired somebody because of what they posted on social media, and like 76% have hired somebody because of what they've seen on social media. So their LinkedIn profile or work that they've done in the community. So I think recognizing that people are watching is important. I think sometimes we think that we're invincible and that the stuff that we do is not going to come to light, and that's the reason why I shared the story, because I got to be prepared to answer to the faculty, the staff, and the students about the rap video I made when I was 21. That is a fact. Like, I say that in jest, but in all seriousness, because it could very well come up, and I have to own that. Good question. Other questions?
We similar in age, so do you find it more difficult these days for a college student to develop themselves and their brand, as you would say?
Yeah.
As for when we were in school, we didn't have the cell phones, the internet wasn't really popular as it is now. And how can they overcome those boundaries?
Yeah, I think it's very different, very, very, very different, right? We could say and do things and get away with it without anybody knowing it, right? I mean, I'm careful about everything that I write and post online, because now in my role, my president says, Jackie, you have to be prepared for anything that you write to be on the front page of the paper, on any platform, whatever I tweet, whatever I post on Instagram, whatever I post in my private group me's that somebody could hack, screenshot, and put out to the world. Whereas back in our day, right, you didn't have to really worry about that. So I do think the reason why I do this presentation as many times as I can is to constantly make you all aware that you're living in a completely different world where people have so much access to you. Like the other day, I just Google searched Jackie Thomas, and it was like a picture of my headshot and like a picture of me and my daughter and my son, right? Because some website grabbed a photo of something I posted on Instagram. So recognizing that everything you put out there is public, even if you've said or done something that may not be a true representation of you, I think from this point forward, you really want to think about it, because the world is watching, right? Your employer is watching. I do an activity in class where I created a fake Facebook profile, and I asked students to go through the profile and point out all the things that that fake student has done that could put them in jeopardy. So for example, like tagging your employer. Like, you know, it's easy to put, I work at McDonald's, but now I could click at McDonald's and see everybody who's tagged that they work at McDonald's. Or, you know, posting your age on there and then having a picture of you drinking alcohol, right? People are smart enough to do the math and recognize that you're not 21. So you just have to think about what you do, and we didn't have to think as much back in the day. So again, I don't say that to scare you all, but just to make you all very, very aware that this world is becoming less and less private and way more public, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. The questions you all have?
All right, well, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you all for coming out and spending some time with me.